The ballroom went silent the moment Serafina Vale's white blouse tore across the chest. A gasp rolled through the crowd as the young waitress stumbled backward, clutching the ripped fabric against herself while hundreds of expensive eyes turned toward her. Serafina, the glamorous girlfriend of Billionaire CEO Cashin Rowe, stood in front of her with fury burning in her eyes, still holding a piece of the torn cloth in her hand. She had thought she was humiliating a powerless waitress. She had no idea that the woman standing in front of her was the one person in the entire ballroom Cashin had been desperately trying to find. If you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that we should never judge someone by their clothes, take a moment to like this story, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. Sometimes the person we overlook is carrying a story powerful enough to change everyone around them. It had started on an ordinary sunny afternoon, long before the chandeliers, cameras, and designer dresses. 26-year-old Maribel Hart worked at the prestigious Aurelia Grand Hotel because she needed money to care for her grandmother, who had raised her after losing her parents. Maribel was not ashamed of her job. She arrived before sunrise, worked through lunch, and often stayed late to help elderly guests carry their bags or quietly fix problems other employees ignored. She wore the hotel's simple white blouse and navy apron every day, keeping her hair neatly tied back and her smile gentle even when her feet ached. What nobody knew was that Maribel had once studied business administration and had been offered a promising career after university. She had walked away from that life when her grandmother became ill, choosing responsibility over ambition. She never complained about it. She simply believed that dignity came from how a person treated others, not from the clothes hanging in their closet. That afternoon, the Aurelia Grand was preparing for the biggest charity gala of the year. Wealthy investors, celebrities, politicians, and business leaders filled the ballroom beneath enormous crystal chandeliers. At the center of the event was Cashin Rowe, the 34-year-old CEO of Rowe International, a technology empire valued at billions. Cashin had arrived in a black suit surrounded by executives, but unlike the people around him, he barely noticed the attention. His eyes kept searching through the crowd. For weeks, he had been looking for someone who had helped him during one of the worst days of his life, someone whose name he had never learned. 3 months earlier, Cashin's private car had broken down during a storm outside the city. His phone was dead, his driver was injured, and he had been stranded on a deserted road. A young woman passing by had stopped despite the rain, called emergency services, gave him her umbrella, and waited until help arrived. She had refused his offer of money and disappeared before he could properly thank her. Cashin remembered only her calm voice, her kindness, and a small silver bracelet engraved with the word grace. He had spent months trying to find her. What he did not know was that the woman was Maribel. On the day of the gala, Maribel was carrying a tray of sparkling water when Serafina noticed her. Serafina had been dating Cashin for nearly a year and had become accustomed to being treated like royalty. She believed appearances were everything. When she saw Cashin looking toward Maribel, she immediately assumed the waitress was trying to attract his attention. Jealousy turned quickly into cruelty. Serafina walked toward Maribel and deliberately bumped the tray from her hands. Glasses crashed onto the polished floor. Before Maribel could even understand what had happened, Serafina accused her of being careless and disrespectful. Maribel lowered her eyes and apologized, not because she believed she had done anything wrong, but because she did not want to cause a scene. She began gathering the broken pieces carefully while the surrounding guests watched. Instead of leaving, Serafina stepped closer and insulted her for wearing a cheap uniform in a room filled with people who could buy the entire hotel. Maribel remained silent. Her silence, however, only made Serafina angrier. Then came the moment that changed everything. Serafina grabbed the front of Maribel's blouse and violently pulled it, tearing the fabric. The room fell silent. Maribel froze, covering herself as tears filled her eyes. Someone in the crowd raised a phone to record the humiliation. Serafina expected everyone to laugh or look away. Instead, Cashin suddenly pushed through the crowd. His expression had completely changed. He did not look at Maribel's uniform. He looked at her face. Then his eyes fell upon the tiny silver bracelet around her wrist. The same bracelet. The same word. Grace. Cashin realized instantly that the woman he had been searching for was standing in front of him, humiliated because of someone else's arrogance. He removed his jacket and gently placed it around Maribel's shoulders, shielding her from the crowd. Then he turned toward Serafina, and for the first time that evening, everyone saw the billionaire CEO without his usual calm mask. The gala continued, but everything had changed. Cashin publicly ordered the event staff to treat Maribel with dignity and instructed his security team to preserve the footage of what had happened. He did not turn the moment into revenge. Instead, he quietly apologized to Maribel for failing to notice what was happening sooner. More importantly, he asked whether she was all right. Maribel expected him to offer money. Instead, Cashin offered something she had almost forgotten existed, an opportunity. He discovered that Maribel had a university degree in business administration and had once dreamed of working in corporate management. Cashin offered her a position in International's Community Development Division, where her experience caring for people would be more valuable than any expensive resume. Maribel hesitated because she did not want charity. Cashin understood and told her the position would be earned, not gifted. Months passed. Maribel became one of the most respected people in the company. She created programs that helped struggling families, supported elderly workers, and provided scholarships for young people who had been forced to abandon their education. Her grandmother proudly watched her granddaughter rebuild the future she had once sacrificed. Cashin also changed. He had spent years surrounded by people who wanted his money, his influence, or his name. Maribel reminded him that wealth meant very little if it could not be used to make someone else's life better. Their relationship developed slowly, built not on luxury but on respect, trust, and shared compassion. As for Serafina, the incident became a lesson she could never escape. Her cruelty had been captured on camera, but what people remembered most was not the torn blouse. They remembered the woman who had been humiliated yet refused to become cruel herself. One sunny afternoon, months later, Maribel stood beside her grandmother outside a new community center funded by International. A small plaque near the entrance carried a simple message about dignity, kindness, and second chances. Maribel looked at it with tears in her eyes, realizing that the worst moment of her life had unexpectedly opened a door she never knew existed. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes kindness still matters, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. Your support helps us bring more stories of courage, dignity, and second chances to people who need them. And before you leave, please comment, kindness always wins, if you believe a person's worth should never be measured by their clothes, their job, or the amount of money in their bank account. Because sometimes the person standing quietly in the corner is not insignificant at all. Sometimes they are simply waiting for the world to look beyond the uniform and finally see who they truly are.